spent youth.
I had bowling last semester with one of my classes, and I thought that's the one I was gonna fail,
Bowling?
because there was attendance.
Oh,
Passed it. We are live.
call the Oglesby City Council meeting to order.
Augubright,
Here.
Cullinan,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Wieski,
Here.
Rivara.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion and second to approve the minutes from the December 21st, 2020 regular meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 21st, 2020 regular meeting.
Second.
Augubright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran,
Aye.
Wieski,
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye. Public comments on agenda items only. Hearing none, we'll move on to number 6. Approve bills as presented for payment.
I'll make a motion to approve bills as presented for payment.
Second.
Augubright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran,
Aye.
Wieski,
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye. Presentation by BHMG Engineering on results of the electric rate study.
Hello?
Is it on? You on?
I think it is. Thought it was.
Hello? Yeah, that's on. Okay, great. Let me just get a second to get set up here. Hi, my name is Verbal Blakey from BHMG Engineers. We've been working with the city of Oglesby for 10 to 15 years, helping them with their electric system. And one of the things that we work on with the city is the electric cost of service and rates. The city requested us a few months back to look at the electric rates and the electric cost of service to see if it's still appropriate for your system. Because your system's been going on, some changes have been going on with your system. But also we recommend to do it every 5 years without changes. So it's it's past the 5 years and you have some load changes that are necessitating to look at the system. So we base the base model off of the most recently audited fiscal year. So our base model will be on the fiscal year ended 2020.
Pardon me, if you take your mask off at the podium, I think you're out of sight, and it'll make it easier to understand.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be, then I don't fog up my glasses. That'll be awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
does the video not have the podium?
What's that?
Does the video not have the podium in it?
Oh, no, I'm not looking at the video, I just
Oh, okay.
can't make out as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Gotcha.
Okay, well,
Gotcha.
thank you. So when we look at the cost of service for the electric system, we start with the most recently audited fiscal year, which for the city of Oglesby is as of April 30th, 2020. And I know that it is January. It took a while to get your audit for us to get started on this. So that's why it's a little, like, hope to do this in the fall, but we didn't get there with the audit. So what you have in front of you are some draft models for 2020, 2021, and 2022. So we really don't want to focus too much on 2020. During that year, you were short-staffed, and so it's not an indicative year of what's typical. We think 2021, the projections we have for that are more indicative of where you are. So if we could look at page 2 of the exhibit that we gave you. And this is the summary model of April 30th, 2021 with 6 months of actual data and 6 months of estimated data. And if you look at line 13 in the system total column, you have a margin of 15%. So what we look for different things to see the financial health of your system. The first thing that we look at is your system overall margin. We want that number to be between 12 and 20%. And that's a pretty wide margin. A lot of it depends on, are your reserves okay? Or do you have a huge capital program ahead of you that you need funds for? Or those are the basic items to tell whether or not you're going to be at the low end of the margin or the higher end. So 15% is healthy. It's not overly healthy, but it's a good spot to be in. So the next thing we look at is your reserves. We recommend that you have 50 to 100% of your annual expenses in reserves. So your annual expenses are approximately 4.5 million. So 50% of that would be 2.25 million. Right now you're at 1.3. So it's not where we want you to be, but it's not horribly concerning. If it was less than $1 million, we'd be significantly concerned. If you had a storm, we could spend $500,000 in a weekend trying to get power back on. So those are things that you have to think about when you think about reserves. It may sound like a lot of money, but if you lose a substation transformer, there's $500,000. So it doesn't take a lot to spend that kind of money in the electric system. So again, your 15%, we think that is a healthy place to be. Now, the next thing we look at is the allocation of expenses between wholesale energy and other expenses. Your other expenses would be like materials and supplies, personnel costs. There needs to be a balance there, and that balance needs to be like 60% to like 79% of wholesale energy costs over your total. You would lean closer to the lower end if your system was super small, and if you got smaller, you had the minimum staff already, so you wouldn't be able to scale down staff. You'd be at the higher end if your system is larger, because then you have a set amount of staff for a much larger load. You're kind of right in the middle. So the number I was looking for Oglesby to have is 70%. If you're below that, then you're too fat, if you will. If you're above that, you're too lean. Yours is like 84 or 85%. So that tells me you're too lean, meaning that you don't have enough non-energy expenses to coincide with your energy expenses. It means your staff is too small, and among other things, and you're not spending enough money on maintenance of your system. So, and that's okay for a while. It's okay if you need to build reserves. It's okay to kick the can down the road for a while. But I think that this system as a whole has seen the effects of that right now. You have a system that needs some significant infrastructure upgrades, and you have some expansion opportunities that you need to do upgrades for in order to be able to get those expansions, which long-term are investments in your system. So we're at a situation now where the financials are showing you that your staff is undersized and you're not spending enough money on your infrastructure, but we're also seeing it in your system. So with that, we expect, putting on the engineering hat, not the rate hat right now, we expect that there's going to be some significant infrastructure upgrades. You've done some already. You have some ahead of you in the near future. You have a crew now that is effectively a maintenance crew. They're not large enough to do construction. So you're going to have to spend that money on infrastructure upgrades. So you can either do it with contractors or you can do it with in-house staff. But if you're going to do it with in-house staff, you need to have more staff and more experienced staff. So we believe right now there is enough margin, enough system without raising rates that you can add a person. But additionally, you have to be able to keep your people. All the municipals in the state of Illinois, we work with like 80 or 90% of the electric municipals in the state of Illinois. All of them are having the same issue. Their electric department isn't being paid competitively. People are leaving. They're going to co-ops, they're going to investor-owned because the wages aren't competitive. So there's all kinds of systems, cities that are in different parts of that path trying to address it. Some are just now starting to address it, some have already addressed it, and some are in the middle, and trying to figure out the best way for their specific town to address it. But what happens if you don't address it is you become a training ground. So you'll hire people, you'll train them through their apprenticeship, and then they'll leave. And so you're constantly going to be a revolving door, and you're never going to have the fully trained people that you need to do the infrastructure construction upgrades. You have a leadership team and the desire to do the upgrades, the desire to do the construction, but you don't have the personnel to do it right now. So effectively, you're going to have to do the upgrades. So they're either going to be on construction, and some of them are going to have to be outside contractors because the scope of it's going to be so large. But there are a lot of things that you can do internally yourself now with the right staff. So without raising electric rates, you can add to your staff and you can pay them competitive wages so they don't leave. If you don't do that, you're going to have to spend more money on contracting, and you can't afford that without raising rates. So our recommendation would be that you pay competitive wages, you make the wages in the electric department more competitive so you can retain personnel and you can attract a journeyman. You need at least one more journeyman until you can attract and retain a journeyman. So those are the first two recommendations that we have with your system. And it's still not going to put you past that percentage that I'm looking at, you know, that 70% of ratio of expenses. So it's still going to keep you healthy, and I think you'll be able to accomplish more in-house than you would otherwise. So the other thing that we want to look at right now is the margins across the customer classes. You want them to be as close to even as you can get them. You want each customer class to contribute the same percentage to your margin as the other ones. It's not going to be perfect, and you're never going to make them equal. And typically in municipal systems, typically the residential class is a little bit lower of a margin than the other classes. That's very common. There's nothing wrong with that. And when we first started this project, one of the objectives that was given to us was to try to create another rate for small commercial, try to find some relief for those customers, or a rate structure like a time of use rate. And we can still look at those things, but there's too many moving parts right now with your load growth to be able to, and also time of use rates require more smart metering that you don't have in place yet. So when we get the data, we can offer those. Time of use rates meaning that people who use more electric off-peak will get a better rate because it costs you less money off-peak. We need to know what their loads are off-peak in order to be able to design the appropriate rate for that, and we're not ready for that yet. I hesitate to recommend to add a class because your commercial classes are kind of small right now. But I do believe in these numbers, in your margin, in your annual numbers, you can afford right now to give rate relief to your small commercial customers. I think across the board, you can cut their rates. We're still working with the city management on what that number looks like, but there's enough margin in there right now to be able to do that. So I believe there is enough margin in there right now to be able to pay more competitively in your electric system department, in your wages, add another person, paid competitively, and also give rate relief to your small commercial customers.
And that's without rates going up?
That's correct.
Okay, just trying to ballpark this.
Yeah, that's correct. So those are the things I think we can do right now. I think there's more that you want to do as a whole, and a lot of those things are going to happen and be able to happen once you have your customer who's in some significant load growth gets to the projections that they're giving us. The next two exhibits, and we won't spend a lot of time on them, are really what does it look like if that customer, your customer that's growing very fast gets to the rate projections the load projections next summer that they're projecting. If they get there, then you'll see the impact that that has on your system.
So this is based on full capacity at that user? Like as
No,
in
that's, okay, what I just
No.
recommended right now is based on where they are today.
Okay,
Okay? So to do anything in addition to that, we need to see if they're gonna make where they think they're gonna go. But
Okay.
today, with the load they have today, so today they have a load factor, and so not to get too technical, but a load factor is basically how much energy can you use in a unit of demand. So basically, on a water analogy, if you have a bathtub, how quickly does it take you to fill it up if you have a small spout or a big pipe? So you're providing there's a big pipe feeding the city of Oglesby, and how much do you use through it? Well, you want to use it at capacity. You want to use it at 100% all the time, but that's not feasible. Your system right now is about 40% load factor, so you're use about 40% of your capacity, okay, on energy. It's not the best analogy, but it's short of getting super technical. Let's just go with that. Any customer that you get that has a higher load factor than that will raise your system load factor, okay? So residential customers are typically in the 30% range. That's just a typical residential customer. You get like a super Walmart, somebody open 24 hours a day that has a steady load, they're gonna be in the 70% range. GTI thinks they're gonna be at 80. Right now they're at 50, 55. But they're still higher than your system. So just what they put on so far has organically lowered your cost of power. You have the same rate, but you have a really high demand rate and a really low energy rate. So the more energy you use in one block of demand, the less your average cost goes down. And because their load factor is higher than your system load factor and they're dragging your system load factor up, they were lowering your average cost for everyone. So there is an organic decrease in rates that gets flowed through on your cost adjustment every month. That hasn't happened for very many months. They haven't been there for very long, right? So it's going to take a little time for that to level out. If they get to where they're projected to be, it's going to be even more. Now, is it going to be significant? Probably not. What you're going to see that's not easily measurable to your customer is that electric rates are going to rise. They always do. Your wholesale rates are going to go up 1 to 2% a year. That's just, it's inflation. But this load factor increase will help pull that down and keep that from happening and go a little bit negative to where it would have been otherwise. It's very hard to show someone that they're saving any money because it's based on what they would have paid otherwise, not what they're paying today, if that makes any sense. But it is happening. So while we'd like to suggest some rate modifications based on the projections on where this customer is going to be, I think it's premature. I think we want to wait until they get to where they tell us they're going to be, because what if they don't make it? What if something changes? What if we get another pandemic? You know, like all kinds of things could happen. But there are things that are positive right now that they've already done with the load they've got there, which is the organic reduction of your wholesale energy average cost. And I think that there's room to do rate relief for your small commercial right now. There's probably, if they do what we think they're going to do and what they hope to do and hit the load projections, there'll be room to do more rate reductions. But I don't want to suggest any of those right now because I think it's premature. So I think kind of want to put a pin in it and let's see where they are over the summer. They're supposed to hit the targets in June. They think that's aggressive. They're not sure they can make it by June. So maybe it's the fall whenever we see where they're going to level out. But once they level out, then we'll see where they are and we'll see what the effect is it's going to be on the entire system as an actual, not as a projected. So,
And that will be another study then?
no, we're just going to put a pin in the study.
Okay.
And it'll be a completion. Right now it'll stay as a draft because we don't really want to finish the projected until we actually know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be just we're just gonna push the pause button.
Okay.
Now we can start with modifications to the modification to an ordinance that you'd have to have in order to do rate relief on the small commercial. That's, we'll do that as a separate, we'll work with your attorney to do that. But as the study itself, we'll put a pin in it.
Okay.
So that's what we're recommending. One other thing that we're recommending is that right now you have 2 adjustments on your electric rates. And I'm trying not to get too complicated, but one happens every month. It's based on your wholesale energy costs. So you average the last 3 months of wholesale energy costs. It's a running 3-month average. And then you subtract out the base amount of electric costs that you have in your rates. And the difference is your adjustment. So positive or negative, it goes on to your bills. So that happens every month. And that adjusts and tracks with the actual cost of wholesale energy. As we spoke before, that's about 85% of your total cost, right? So 85% of your total costs are tracked every month and your rates are automatically adjusted. Well, the other 15% isn't being adjusted, and that's affected every year by inflation or by wage increases. So that's going up. So if you don't adjust for that, then you start to you'll lose ground. Your 15% turns into 14, then it turns into 13. So you want to prevent that. And the last rate ordinance you did put provisions in to prevent that. It puts an annual adjustment for that for that portion of your rates. Not the whole thing, just that little 15% portion of your rate gets adjusted by a flat percentage every year. That adjustment is in the summer. I think, and I don't know 100% without going back and looking, but I think that's probably because that's when we passed the rate ordinance the last time, so it was just an annual thing. We've seen it been more effective to do it on a calendar year basis, so the recommendation we would have right now is to skip the one in summer of 2021 and put a new schedule in and make it effective every January 1st. So you would be, the other rate relief type thing you can do right now is to skip that operating expense adjustment this summer and then put a new schedule in that goes in every January. January is a little bit easier for customers to be able to tolerate rate adjustments because their usage isn't as high. And that's basically, you're just shifting it. You're not getting rid of it, you're just shifting it. So today we would make a recommendation also that would be another modification to your ordinance that timing just gets shifted to start January 1st, be every January 1st. Or you can make it, you can make it March 1st if you want. I just think the summer's not the right time. So those, so just to kind of recap, those are the recommendations we have at this time is to pay competitive wages to retain people in your electric department and hire another journeyman, not an apprentice, a journeyman, because you have to be able to train the people you have now. And to do some rate relief for your small commercial customers. And then change your adjustment date to January instead of the summer. And then wait to see if GTI actually hits the load projections before we do anything else.
I did one thing I just wanted to clarify. The reason we can do the commercial change is because they're actually a relatively small percentage of our overall
That's
load.
correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. So even of your revenue, they're 10% of your revenue. So any adjustment that you make to them is not going to impact your system that harshly. So that's why we can give them rate relief right now, because it's not like giving residential rate relief would be almost half of your system revenue. So any type of percentage you give them impacts your system a lot more.
And the commercial is the largest already, so that's why we talked about trying to get a separate rate for them. That's why it's easier, because they're a smaller portion of our overall load, so therefore we could target them to give them some relief to get them closer to the others.
They have the largest rate of margin right now, and so they're the ones that need the targeted relief. And their revenue comparatively to your system is not that significant to where it would impact you that negatively on a system-wide total. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to comprehend, we're dropping one rate, but we're not gonna raise any other rates?
That's right.
Okay. So we're
So
gonna
your
have
overall
less
system
revenue
will
though,
go down,
right? Yeah,
And,
okay.
and I'm proposing that you raise your expenses.
Okay.
So your overall margin, that 15% will be cut. It would be closer to 12 to 13%.
I got a question for you. Being that we've had so many fossil plants close, and Ameren is raising our tariffs on our transmission and energy by 24%. We can handle it with what we've done and what we're going to do. How do you look that in the future that's going to affect us?
So those type of things affect your wholesale energy cost. And right now, your wholesale energy cost, as we talked, is about 85% of your total system cost. And that is passed through to your customers on your monthly adjustment on your actual cost. But because if you attract load that has high load factor, higher than your already system average, like Love's, anything that's 24 hours or multi-shift is going to have a much better load factor than just a typical customer. So you've added some load at the highway, at your interchange, and then with the GTI load, those things will raise your load factor, which lowers the average cost of your power. So those items like that, when you say that the transmission's going by 24%, but understand that's not the whole piece of all your costs. So your wholesale
Correct.
costs aren't going up by 24%. A portion of it is, a slice of it is. But it's right. I mean, that goes back to wholesale energy costs are going to rise. And if you can lower your average cost, the rates aren't changing from IMEA, but your average cost changes because you buy more energy in the same block of demand. That's because the higher the load factor, the more efficient use you have of that demand. Then that's going to lower your average cost, and it will minimize the impacts of those items on your customer bills. But that's just gonna continue to happen, so we need to do whatever we can to mitigate that. And mitigating that is adding more load that's, has a
That's balanced.
desirable load profile.
And so so we did a water rate study, and we looked at 10 years in the future, how much we were gonna have to spend to upgrade our system. Was that a part of this, or was that not a part of this?
So, a little. I mean, you guys have done a little bit, and we worked with you. There's not a formal capital improvement plan right now. Right now, we're waiting on, you have to have it, you're gonna sign an agreement with Ameren to do a study on an interconnect, and that's one of the biggest unknowns right now for you all, and how much that's gonna cost and what they're gonna be willing to let you do.
We have no idea what we're gonna pay for it?
Yes.
No,
No, we
the-
know what we're gonna pay for the study,
Right.
but that's the whole reason they're doing the study is we don't know what the answer is. They're gonna be able to come back of what they can support for like getting a second interconnect and things like that.
So the option, they're going to evaluate the options and tell you how much each option is, and tell you what option they'll let you have versus not. We've asked for what we want, we just don't know if they'll allow it. So, once you sign the contract and execute that study, then the study takes about 6 months to get, and then we'll have more information on what that's gonna cost, because that, the capital plan that, I wouldn't say draft, I would just say preliminary capital plan has things on it, but they're all not huge. Huge ticket is relative, right? So for electric system, $100,000, $200,000 job is not a huge ticket item. $500,000, $1 million is. Those interconnects could be $1 million, depending on whether they let you interconnect, or it could be multi-million. But right now, you have one interconnect for the entire town. So if you lose that, like you've experienced, everybody goes down. There's no backup on your wholesale side. So this is not just about your new customers, this is about all the customers you have today. And in order to attract attractive load that's manufacturing, that's the load that you really want, because that load has high load factors, you need more reliable power. And you can't do that with only one point of service. And so those, I mean, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, you have to be able to have reliable power in order to attract these people. But in order to attract these people, you have to have, you need the money to buy the reliable power.
We have to have the second feed
You
in
do.
order to establish reliable service.
Absolutely.
And so my next question is, you believe we can hire someone, but we don't have any idea what we're gonna be doing in the next 10 years for the
No,
capital
there's a-
plan?
We got,
No, we have a list of things to do.
Okay.
But the big.
Do we have a
ticket
dollar
item-
amount for the next 10 years of what we're estimating to spend?
I don't know that it's out for 10 years, maybe it looks like 5, but.
we do have a 10-year plan. It's the one you gave me at turnover.
Yeah.
So
I
we
don't
have
know
those
pricing
already.
out. Is that currently what we're going on? I haven't been in that department for 2 years.
Well,
now, so
we have
I
that.
expect change.
No, we have that. We've had a lot of things added because of that, though. I mean, obviously, we've had GTI, that was a new thing. The derecho damage, we had that. We have the new knowledge of the problem we have with the switches that we found out with the car crash that happened. And then there's the whole thing with the new interconnect. So there's even more than those 32 items that was on that 10-year plan. So there is stuff out there. The big one we don't know anything about, though, right now, is whatever happens with that interconnect, because that's what we have to get information from Ameren on.
And honestly, if you guys have a 2-voltage system, a 4160 and a 12470, and your 12470 system is the one that's out by the interstate, that's the one you want to grow on. You don't want to grow on your 4160. But also what you want to do is eventually convert back. So overall, you have a system conversion that could be super huge if you do it in 2 or 3 years, or it can be spanned over like 10 years. But in order to grow, you need to grow on 12 kV, which means we have to expand capacity out at the interstate.
And
So
those
that's
are-
something that's probably not on that list
And
initially.
no, there is items like that is in that 10-year plan for putting more to convert it to 12K.
And so did we receive that check that they were supposed to give us like 3 months ago? Because they are a golden
It was a
ticket
month,
to the, we're going great here.
it was a month and a half ago. Actually, one of the items we're waiting on is tonight. It is item number 11. There was, we're not changing the agreement. There was some confusing language in the agreement, so we're doing a memorandum of understanding that explains that a little bit more detailed. And once we get that signed, they've even asked me if they want me to wire the money or give us a check, and I asked for a check. So hopefully we'll have that in the next few days. As soon as I have it, I'll let you know.
All right, great.
So that's all I have prepared to present. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have.
I think I'm all out.
So I think that based on what your discussion is tonight, we would return with you with a proposed, I would get with your attorney with some proposed ordinance changes that he would draft up an ordinance to make those changes on just your timing of your operating expense adjustment and also the rates for small power.
Well, I was hoping just to mostly get the information tonight so we can digest it, and then at our next working meeting, we'll probably talk a little more detail about our options of what we'd like to explore.
And then once you decide to do that, the rest of the study will just put a pin in it and wait until the GTI load is final at where they're, and see if they hit their projections, or if not, then we'll recalculate.
Okay.
I am correct that we looked at reducing the residential rate at one time by at least a penny a kilowatt. We weren't able to do that because of the closing of baseload plants and the raising of tariffs on our transmission.
Yeah, I don't wanna, I'm leery to go into a number of what that can be. I'd like to be able to say a specific number. I mean, I think we have to wait to find out how successful GTI is with their load factor. Because if they do hit those marks, there is going to be more savings that we can get to residents. I'm very leery to say a number of what that could be, because then all of a sudden, if we don't hit it, then I'm a liar. But I'm hoping to have even more better news for our residents. But in the meantime, the two big things that I'm hearing that we get out of this is, one, we can move the yearly adjustment from the summer. We delay it. That's the first thing. And the other thing is, even at what GTI is doing now for us, that does help suppress the increase to power cost adjustment.
It already has.
It has. It's a tough thing to sell to residents, though, because it's hard to tell them, here's what you're saving compared to what you didn't. You know what I mean? So, like, for example, if GTI would have been in place previous year, instead of having that spike that we had in the summer for the 2.8 cents per kilowatt hour for the biggest power cost adjustment, that number would have been less because of the suppression of what GTI is doing for the residents. So the residents do have a stake in how successful GTI really is, because not only does it suppress the power cost adjustment, but then, like we're saying, we might be able to put a change to the residents to lower. I hate to say something like a penny or something like that. I'd like to be able to say that, but I don't know what that number is going to be until we get the study completed.
Well, I think something to keep in mind about the GTI load is they're projecting an 80% load factor. So most municipals, similar to Oglesby, would love to have a super Walmart or a super Target that has a 70 to 75% load factor. This is even higher than that. So, and then they become a bigger portion of the city's overall load, and that should have a measurable, I don't want to use the word significant, but measurable impact on every rate category.
Thank you, Virgil.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Moving to the next item on the agenda, discuss option for the sale of municipal vehicles. One 1992 Chevrolet 1500 pickup with 118,243 miles, and one 2004 Dodge pickup truck with the plow with 260,000 miles. This is posted on our internet with the information and sealed bids. If we get anything, we can open them up at a meeting in first meeting in February. If we don't get nothing, we can jump them.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Do I need to vote on that, or?
No, I think if you can just proceed that way, if we were gonna sell them to someone, we would need an ordinance, and I suggest, because Dom didn't think we'd necessarily, I could do an ordinance that says you're gonna put them out to bid and then sell it to the, highest bidder. But in light of the fact that, you may not even get anybody interested in them, didn't make a lot of sense to pay me to do an ordinance. Let's see if you get any interest. If you don't get any interest, I think all you'd have to do is put it on the agenda, make a motion to to just send, you know, to scrap them.
Yeah.
To send them to the junkyard. And I don't, you're not gonna need an ordinance to do that.
Okay?
Okay. Approve ordinance 1148-010.
There's a rezoning one, Dom, number 9.
I'll skip that, I'm sorry. Refer petition for rezoning by RJS Investments LLC to the Oglesby Planning Commission for a hearing.
I will make a motion to refer petition for rezoning by RJS Investments LLC to the Oglesby Plan Commission for a hearing.
I'll
Second.
second.
Lightning fast. Oh, that was her, all day.
Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran.
Aye.
Wieski.
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye.
Just FYI, folks, the date is set. We're going to have the meeting on Wednesday, January 20th at, I can't remember if it's 6:30 or 7:30. 6:30. Here in the city council chambers. I thought it was, I thought we did it for, I thought the notice said 7.
It's not the 20th, it's the 13th.
I thought it was the
No.
13th.
13th
No,
is-
we had to move it back to the,
Oh, okay.
we had to move it back to the 20th.
The 13th is the special meeting I think you're thinking of.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
13th is a
For us.
special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and so
The
everybody.
notices have been posted in the paper.
Yes.
We'll need somebody for the
Yes.
20th.
Also, one thing that's a little confusing, in case anybody gets any questions, the lot that they're requesting the rezoning is the lot that would be immediately north of the St. Margaret's Hospital, St. Margaret's Health Clinic. And what's confusing is the north-south street is Marquette there, but when it T-intersects, you know, when it dead ends, when you go to the west, it's Roebuck, and when you go to the east, it's Sunset. And the petition that I got from the petitioner said the intersection of Marquette and Roebuck, so originally that's the way I was gonna publish it. And then one of the members of the Plan Commission, Mr. Regazio, said, I can't find Roebuck Street, you know, on the map, so I talked to Jim Kleinert, and that's when we found out how it, you know, how it went. So I was trying to scramble around and get the notice in the newspaper corrected, because it was published, I think in Saturday's newspaper. I was trying to do that Thursday last week, and I noticed when it did get published that we caught the change at one spot, but we didn't do it. It's in two places. One place says Marquette and Roebuck, the other one says Marquette, Roebuck, and Sunset. I don't consider that to be an issue. We don't have a street address anyway.
So, I talked
And the
to,
legal description is correct.
The pin's
Legal
still the same. yeah.
Pins in the legal are all
Yeah.
correct.
well, I talked to, just so you know, since we're already talking about, I was gonna talk about this at the working meeting. Jim Clenard pointed out to me that the plats say Roebuck, even though Google Maps and our street signs say Sunset. There is no addresses on that street right now. So if somebody were to build a home there, they'd have, the legal address would be Roebuck. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is that should we just, we don't have anybody named Roebuck in city that's important to, I would just change that to Sunset and let Sunset continue, but that's a discussion for another day.
I'm guessing whoever developed that property was named Roebuck. If I had to go out on a limb here. So,
No idea.
anyway, little things.
Okay, moving on.
It is confusing, though.
Yeah.
Now I'll get to
Same
the right
street,
one.
and Name changes when you go.
Approve
Intersection.
ordinance 1148-010-421. An ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement for warranty deed between the city of Oglesby and Eric Joseph Shavosik, and and Jill Shavosik.
I'll make a motion to approve 1148-010-421, an ordinance authorizing the execution of agreement for warranty deed between the city of Oglesby and Eric Joseph Shavokas and Jill Shavokas.
I'll second.
Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan, Curran,
Aye.
Wieski,
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye. Approve memorandum of understanding regarding the city of Oglesby and GTI power purchase agreement.
Let me try to explain to you what the reason for the delay when Commissioner Augubright was asking, had we received the check yet? GTI contacted the city, would have been, December 18th was a Friday, so it would have been around sometime in that week, at the beginning of that week. And GTI indicated that they thought the language in the agreement for the B7 rate could be interpreted to mean that they only had to hit the B7 rate in 4 out of every 12 rolling months. Once, it's a little confusing. They have the B6 rate until they have enough load to hit B7. They're supposed to hit B7 by June 1st of 2021. Then, once they hit it, let's say they hit it in May, then going forward 12 months, they have to maintain that load for 8 out of the next 12 months. Otherwise, it goes back to B6. GTI said that we think it can be interpreted to mean we only have to hit it in 4 out of 12, and GTI admitted that wasn't the agreement. So after speaking with Commissioner Kern, the GTI representatives, Troy Fodor at the Illinois Municipal League, I'm sorry, the Illinois IMEA, Illinois Municipal Electrical Association, Troy suggested we just clarify the language. So the memorandum what we tried to do with the memorandum of understanding is GTI didn't want to sign the agreement without the memorandum of understanding. I didn't want to redraft the whole agreement because that would have meant that I would have had to place it on file at tonight's meeting, and we wouldn't have been able to approve it until the meeting 2 weeks from tonight. I see no reason we can't adopt the memorandum of understanding. That's not a contract. That just clarifies the agreement that we have. So we're all clear that it's a rolling, they have to meet the requirements 8 out of every 12 months.
I just want to clarify there. I know a lot of legal speak there. My version of it is that what we got from the lawyers is that the agreement we did was correct.
Yes.
The
that was
language in there, though, there is some language that could have been confused. And I'll tell you what, even though I'm excited for the city to get the check, I'll tell you what, I really am appreciative of GTI for pointing it out. Because if there would have been any kind of misunderstanding of the way it is, it actually is to the benefit of not the city. You know what I mean? It'd be the city's responsibility if there was something wrong with that. So the idea is we'll keep the agreement, and this memorandum is just simply a clarification of some of those difficult things that we're trying to explain here. And that's all it is. All parties were involved with that, and they're happy with that understanding. So I thought this was the easiest way to do it, so we don't affect the agreement that we already have on file. And this way we'll get our check too, and everybody's happy, and move on to phase 3, and hopefully they get all their successes that they need to get done for qualifying for those extra incentives, because the city benefits from it too.
Also, assuming the MOU is approved tonight, we should make sure that the mayor signs it, clerk signs it, and that somebody gets it emailed to GTI tomorrow.
Yep. On that note, I'll make a motion to approve memorandum of understanding regarding the City of Oglesby and GTA Power Purchase Agreement.
Second. She's on top of it today.
Augubright.
Aye.
Cullinan. Kern.
Aye.
Wieski.
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye. Place on file ordinance 1149-011821, abating taxes levied for the year 2020 payable in the year 2021 to pay debt services on general obligation refunding bond series 2028.
Okay, if you remember, at the last meeting, we adopted the tax levy ordinance, and we adopted the ordinance abating the 2013 alt-rev bonds. Normally, when we passed those two ordinances, we also abated the 2010 Series A and B rev bonds. We didn't do that this time because the refinancing, the new bonds that we issued to save a couple bucks in interest, take the place of the 2010 bonds. When I called the county clerk's office prior to the last meeting, or actually, really at the beginning of December, when I was preparing the abatement ordinance and the tax levy ordinance, the county clerk's office did not have on file from bond council the new bond ordinance with the new levy. When I recorded, or when I filed with the county clerk's office, the Oglesby tax levy ordinance last Tuesday, I asked the county clerk's office whether that ordinance had been filed, and I learned that it had been. So this just debates the real estate taxes to make sure they don't show up on the tax bill. Now, we can only place it on file. We'll adopt it at the second meeting, and then I'll file it with the county clerk's office. And although the tax levy has to be filed with the county clerk's office before the last Tuesday in December, the abatement ordinances do not. They just want them before March, so that it's before the tax bills go out, or get prepared.
All right, I'll make a motion to place on file ordinance 1149-011-821, abating taxes levied for the year 2020 payable in the year 2021 to pay debt service on general obligation refunding bonds, series 2020A.
Second.
Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran,
Aye.
Bianski,
Aye.
Rivera,
Aye. Next one is place on file ordinance 1150-011-821, authorizing the execution of an agreement for study of services between the City of Oglesby and Ameren, Illinois Company.
Do you want me to go ahead and try to explain what it is?
Well, it's
Okay.
second feed, go ahead.
Okay, so the reason this kind of got held up a little bit is because I like to ask a lot of questions. What this essentially is doing for us is allowing us to get a study to see what Ameren can support for their infrastructure for us to be able to get another high-power feed into the substation, into the Malik Road substation, which would allow us to have a second interconnect, more reliability, and that we could power the city and all of our things from a second route or an alternate route. The other thing that we requested to be put into this is the possibility of getting a 138 kilovolt feed, which is a high-power feed. Apparently, Peru has tried to do this many, many years ago, and the cost of the study was too expensive. However, they are in the process right now of doing a major renovation of their substations right now, and the fact that we possibly would have a benefit to get into it as well. So I requested that we also get the 138 kilovolt feed as part of the study. The problem that held that back is that is way more complicated apparently, and I don't want to hold up the study for us to get our second interconnect. So the latest and greatest I have on this is this portion of the study, it's significantly cheaper, and we're splitting it with Peru, and it doesn't include the 138 kilovolt study. They are saying that they want to see if they can also do that as well, but they didn't want to do it over the holidays. And they also don't want to hold up the study that we're doing right now. So that is still looking to come, and I do want to keep pushing that, and that's the reason I mention it tonight, is because I don't want to miss this opportunity to get that study for both us and or Peru, because after they build out their new substation, chances are this will be another missed opportunity for the next 15 to 20 years again. So all this is doing right now is it's doing the study to see if we can get our second interconnect for the Malik Road substation. And the cost of it's about 50% of the 15,000. Any questions on that?
No, just to, and this is a unique and best time to do this, since Ameren and I'm assuming Commonwealth Edison are going to do a major expansion of the switching substation in Oglesby here.
And that's the main reason I wanted to get the 138 in there as well, is because Peru had an opportunity many years ago, but the cost was so large to do the study. Now the fact that they're already doing the substation and we could get it split between two municipalities, my goal is to see if we can get a study to do the same thing at a much lower rate.
Sure.
So hopefully we're gonna get more information on that in the weeks to months to come.
I need a motion and second to proceed.
I'll make a motion to place on file ordinance 1150-11821, authorizing the execution of an agreement for study of services between the City of Oglesby and Ameren, Illinois Company.
Second. Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan, Curran,
Aye.
Mieski,
Aye.
Rivera,
Aye. I don't think we've got anything under old business. Public comments?
I received a note from Greg Stein, who wanted this addressed under public comments tonight. And he's actually addressing this to Chief Hayes, stating, in the IVCC shootout, is the RV the stolen vehicle or the police car? Who owns the RV? Can we know the names of the officers involved, or is it HIPAA? Do our cars have dash cam? Was the car shot up Oglesby? If so, how long gone for? Does the city, county have to keep the RV until trial? And where, and who pays storage costs? And is Josh Scammon's truck, the bow and arrow murderer, still in this situation until when? I actually had, Chief Hayes had written something for me to address tonight regarding that incident, and many of the questions will be answered. And Chief, if there are some outstanding, maybe you could give a few extra. I'd like to thank area departments for their assistance. This case would not have ended up with the capture of the suspect as quickly had those agencies not been involved. Other agencies involved were the LaSalle County Sheriff's Department, LaSalle Police, Trident, Peru Police, Utica Police, Tonka Police, Illinois State Police, Kane County Bomb Squad, and the Illinois Conservation Police. That is such an awesome response for us. Officer-involved shootings are emotionally charged events. These incidents require rapid response, leaving little time for deliberation. Therefore, it is important for a law enforcement agency to monitor the actions of their officers' physical and emotional reactions of those officers. For that reason, the 2 Oglesby officers involved in the incident have been and will be on administrative leave until it can be determined they are positively ready to return to duty. At 7:50 p.m. on December 29th, 2020, the Oglesby Police received a call from the Illinois Valley Community College Security Office in regard to a suspicious vehicle parked behind a building near the automotive school building. It was reported that the vehicle was a full-size RV-type vehicle. Oglesby officers responded and located the vehicle as reported. The officers approached the vehicle and knocked on the door. The suspect opened the door and spoke to the officers. After a short conversation, the suspect started to run away. The officers pursued on foot when the suspect opened fire with a semi-automatic pistol. Officers returned fire and took cover near their vehicle. Both vehicles were hit by gunfire, and the suspect got into one of the squad cars and drove off, leaving the campus parking lot. The officers requested assistance, and numerous area agencies responded. When they began to search for the squad car, it was located not too far from the location of the gunfire in a residential area. Officers approached the squad car and found it to be empty. Officers were able to locate fresh tracks in the new snow and proceeded to follow them back onto the IVCC campus and then into a wooded area and down a hill into another residential area along the Illinois River. More responding officers were stationed on the Shippingsport Bridge and did in fact see the suspect running along the river towards the bridge. Officers yelled at the suspect to stop, and he was taken into custody by pursuing officers. He was taken to the Illinois Valley Community Hospital, where he was treated for a head wound and subsequently released to the custody of LaSalle County investigators. He is currently at the LaSalle County Jail. A search warrant was issued by the LaSalle County State's Attorney's Office for the RV that the suspect was in, and reports are being forwarded to the LaSalle County State's Attorney for review. Illinois State Police crime scene investigators were called to the scene, as well as the Kane County Bomb Squad and technicians. As of today, the investigation continues, as in all cases, the suspect is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That was very nicely written. Thank you, Chief Hayes. Some of the questions that Greg Stein brings up about the RV being stolen, or was it the police car that was stolen? We've answered that it was a police car. The names of the officers, we will not talk about that at this point to give them some time to heal. Dash cams, Chief, maybe you can explain that a little bit better than myself. We don't really have.
Dash cam, but we have a cam that is activated with the red lights when an officer is getting ready to pull someone over, or he's in a pursuit, or he's en route to an emergency call. Anytime those red lights are activated, then that camera is activated.
So that it was police cars, I believe what was shot were windows were shot out, but we busted tires and he drove on the rim for a little bit. We do have to keep the RV in being sequestered right now. I suppose we will have to pay the storage costs. I'm not sure where they're sequestering that, and I do not have an answer for the bow and arrow murder that still has not gone to full trial. Is there anything else, Chief, that you wanted to add to it, or?
Unless someone has a question that I can specifically answer, and I may or may not be able to.
I think your letter really summed up everything very well.
Could I make a statement, please? I'd like to thank the council for going ahead and adding that second officer. I've always said you never know when stuff's gonna hit the fan, and in that situation, if there would've been one guy on, he might not come home. It's dangerous out there, it's getting worse, and thank God you had two sets of eyes on this guy. Because most of the time on a traffic stop, you do tend to take it as a traffic stop, and sometimes you're not as alert as somebody else picking up something else. But I always said it's dangerous. We worked that way for a long time here, and unfortunately, like Spring Valley, they had the same problem. The guy knew the officer, they got into a fight, the gun was taken. The subject was killed, but I just like to say thanks for adding that second officer. I mean, like I said, one guy on, he may not be going home. So, good job.
Well, thanks to you as well. I mean, you're on the council as well. It was a big effort between everybody and all the input, so
great
I'm
job.
glad that something positive came out of that. That's great.
Commissioners' reports?
I have nothing to report tonight.
Terry?
Well, in addition to the police report from Chief Hayes, I can tell you that the fire department only had 11 calls for December. But for the entire year 2020, they had 213. Ron would kill me for saying that. 213. He was able to benefit from some of the Cures Act money. There were 5 radios totaling $3,600 that he hopes gets paid for. Thank you, Tom. 36,000.
36,000,
Oh,
yes.
he told me yeah. All right, so it's okay that I inflated his fire calls. The Oglesby Ambulance Department was also able to cash in on that, and they had $53,365.31. Purchasing the Stryker Lucas CPR compression machine that helps during CPR, 3 laryngoscopes, and a power cot. So that's awesome that we're able to use some of that money for items that we truly need within our department. I can say that ambulance was down just a little bit this month in calls. They had 69 that they responded to, and 32 of those were transfers. That's all I have.
All right. The first time they got out plowing was just recent. We kind of had a late start to the snowfall, which is good by my book. Worked out pretty well. We did work out some kinks with some alleyways that might have gotten missed, but that's all good now, and I think they did a great job, and hopefully the snowfall stays kind of easy throughout the rest of the season, but we're prepared and ready. The last thing I got is the electric study. Obviously, I'm real pleased that, especially at the beginning of the year, we got to put out something that's positive. And I look forward to next week at our working meeting when we can start discussing some options about some of the good things we want to do with it. And that's all I got.
Colin?
As far as the park department, everything's pretty much there. It's just that, they were having a little problem with the ice rink. I guess when it was a little bit warmer, it got slushy. And I guess some of the kids in the neighborhood were building forts on top of the ice. So, they have to go back and fix everything up but it's gonna get back to normal. But I'd like to also, make a comment here that, we did have an officer that retired recently, Sergeant Padilla. And, I'd like to thank him for his 14 years of service and congratulate him on his new job as chief. And, I hope he has a long employment. That's all I got tonight.
Okay, thank you. As we close out 2020, I'd like to thank our city employees for the great job that they've done. They've really put more than their backs into it, they put their hearts to it. I'd like to thank all the people who have donated to our little food pantry that have helped so many. I guess I was totally taken back of the number of people that use it and need the help, and I just want to thank the residents for their monetary and food donations. I too want to echo and I'm thankful for the good job that our police officers did, and no one was injured. It was fortunate that the city had 2 officers on the shift, and it's a test that we had 2 people come home safe that night because of that. The COVID-19 has had its toll on Oglesby, with about 10% of our residents being affected in 2020. 2021 has to be a better year. And just to remind everybody, we have our working meeting scheduled for Wednesday, January 13th at 6:30 p.m. With that, I have a request here to go into closed session. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or legal counsel for the public body. Also, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberation concerning salary schedule for one or more classes of employees. ILCS 120/2 parentheses C parentheses 1.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan. Kern.
Aye.
Wieroski.
Nay. I was given no reason why we were going to talk about police issues, and therefore have nothing prepared.
Oh, I don't know if that's like
Aye.
lead off closed session.
That's fair. Ooh. I'm jealous.
No. That's why I wanted to show off.
It's been going on 14 years, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
That came from the police, look at that.
Yeah.
Badge on there and everything.
I know, isn't it cool? I love it.
Man, hold on. This thing comes from Chief, did it?
It's Chief and Mike.
Oh, I gotta take a picture of this to show this to my guys. See how they got Kerry taken care of? Man,
You bet.
man.
Hey, see the mayor, it's nice thing with, our grants and investments, what did they
The
want
mayor
to
got one
do?
too?
It's,
All I
The
did is
state-
all I did-
the
call it
state
2 a.m. says,
statute.
Hey, stuff's broke.
for medical
All right.
cannabis cultivation centers.
It does, thank
Says
you.
that it can't be within 2,500 feet of any property zoned residential.
Okay,
GTI wants to buy the lot, I think it's 1, but it's the property between Love's and GTI.
okay.
If they do that, the northeast corner of that property would be within 2,470 feet of the lot that we're rezoning.
Okay, so this is not a new business, this is GTI's existing thing, they ran into a technicality
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
what ended, and we couldn't grant a variance.
It's just that, yeah, it's, that's good.
We couldn't,
Technical stuff makes me nervous, this is what I know about power, I'm not a
We
kid
couldn't-
like Bill, that's it.
we
The,
couldn't grant a variance, and I even talked to Lance Yednock about this. We couldn't grant a variance because the state statute for cannabis, medical cannabis cultivation, that's in the state statute. It's gotta be 2,500 feet. When the state passed, when the, they didn't put any restrictions in this, so we could do whatever we wanted. So we made it 1,500, we did some other things, and we could have granted a variance, but we can't grant a variance. And they don't want it, they have their medical, they can do medical, or they can do recreational, and they don't wanna give up their medical. So, okay, it's kind of weird. Mark Daniels decided to buy the lot and has to have it rezoned.
Hey, don't worry, I keep on beating up Jim every other day about our meeting with,
About my record Scarlet Knights, because they lost time the other day, one point. Not been a bad season so far. No. Nobody lost. Well, the big game.
point was if we ever had something that had to do that, we got a call for.
I would let,
Well, you can, yeah, well, I thought you were gonna answer the question. You understood what we're doing with the sergeants.
I need a motion and second to go back into regular session.
I'll make a motion to go back into regular session.
second. We're still on
I
here.
need a motion and second to
We did.
adjourn.
First and second.
We're eyeing here first. Aye, yes, let's come back into open session. Aye.
Your first motion is to
Yeah.
come back in
We-
open
we did
session.
that.
We did that.
We did that.
Adjourn.
Archerbright,
Aye.
Kurt Cullinan, Karen,
Aye.
Wieski,
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye. I need a motion and second to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, well, that's what we.
Albright and Kern.
Okay, Archerbright,
Aye.
Cullinan, Kern,
Aye.
Wieski,
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.